Something hit on our radar here a little while ago. It was called The Blitz, and it was a movie on Apple TV. And when I seen that, I was like, I want to see it. I want to see it, you know, like this looks really cool from the previews and stuff. So finally over the holiday, I got to check it out. And we are not movie reviewers. We dive into British culture, so we're going to focus more on the cultural thing. Obviously, we'll talk about how we feel about the film, like overall. Mm-hmm. But just to give you an idea, brace with no spoilers. This follows a single mom, her father, and her child. And I feel like this was a good point or a good option for this film because it kind of showed different sections. Because if there was a person, a male figure in a fatherly age, like for that child, they probably wouldn't have been in the film anyway because they would have been off doing something else. They would have been on the war front or something like that. In the start of the show, it dives right into the middle of, you know, just life in the Blitz. One of the first things to point out is during the Blitz, they was taking the children out to the countryside. Mm-hmm. To be safe because Germany was bombing every single one of these cities at any point. And they was bombing civilians. There was no rules at this point. I think the movie conveyed good of like that eternal, like, you know, that mother having to put her son on a train because you don't know who you're giving your child to.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine. That to me was heartbreaking in itself.
Yeah.
Besides everything else going on, like the whole entire thing is heartbreaking. But like the idea of being a mom and giving your kid off to strangers, you don't know where they're going, who's taking care of them, how they're being taken care of while all of this disaster is going on is like a complete, utter nightmare.
Yeah. There was a particular scene in the show where she's doing stuff in the kitchen. And as she's doing things in the kitchen, the radio is coming on, and it's a man trying to convince people, the radio host is, he's basically saying, you know, make sure you send your kids out to the countryside. And in a way, he put it was like, you know.
There's a possibility that they will be uncomfortable or that they'll be homesick. But the alternative could be unthinkable.
Like, you know, they'll be safer out there, and God only knows what's going to happen when they're here. You know, and that was kind of a, like, you know, that's a scary situation to sit there and think that's what you're debating.
Yeah.
Moving on, another thing that it showed was, another scene, it showed this factory. In this factory, these women looked like they was building kind of bombs. Or, you know, ammunition. And that was something that one of our, you know, a lot of our followers, because we asked, like, what was the women doing? And I think the show really kind of showed what the women was doing and how they joined the war effort, and they was working just as hard. And it was kind of, you know, it was very unusual for us to see because these things are not in our time period.
Yeah, it was like mind blowing to see all the like women doing that because it's like, you know, they had no idea what they were doing. That's not a normal thing for any woman to really do, especially back then. And like just the idea of being thrown from normal life to here, I'm going to go send my child away and now build bombs and ammunition and all these things. Why the whole world around you is like falling down.
One of the other things was that visually connection, giving you that sense of panic.
Yeah.
Because there was scenes, and some of our followers or subscribers, I mean, if you go to our Blitz video, there's miles of thousands of comments and stories and stuff. And one of the things they talked about was how the London Tube, right? It acted as a bomb shelter. Mm-hmm. but I believe the government at the time was afraid if the people got into the tubes, they would not come back out. So they tried to keep them out of the tubes, and it's showing these scenes of people rushing these tubes and the police officers guarding it. And I don't know if it was militia or military guarding it, and these people are just banging, saying, let us in, and these bombs are dropping all around them. And then, eventually a police officer's looking, like, this is insanity, right? And let them in, and that's early on in the show. And then it shows them in the factory. The BBC comes and talks to them, and they do the show, and the main character gets up and sings a song, and there's a little emotional thing by her child there. But as soon as she gets done singing, all the women get up and they start saying, unlock the tubes, let us have the tubes. And you could see like what an emotional thing that would be at that time, to be like, there's a perfect place to hide, and then and throughout the whole movie, you kind of see this back and forth between, the moral standings of the people for their duty and for the job, or for their, orders. There are people's walking kids up, and, they're going to let a kid in, and that was kind of, it was emotional.
And watching that and seeing all the people hiding in the tubes, and from the Blitz video that we done before, just the idea of that, and like seeing that on the movie was like crazy, because we stood in a lot of those.
Yeah.
And we had no idea, especially me, like I knew nothing about the Blitz before our trip.
Mm.
So like, just to think now, like we were standing in those tubes, and like I had no idea that all those things went on, and that people were literally spending their time and hiding down there, like hoping to stay alive, fighting for their lives.
One of the high anxiety moments of the movie was the boy walks into the station and a flood breaks out into the tube.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And as he's walking in, I'm looking at the wall, and it says London Bridge Station. And I'm like, that's where it really like hits home. And I'm sitting there like, I stood in that station, and I don't know if it actually flooded or not. I heard, stations, people getting killed and stuff, but being aware of how close that station sits close to the Thames was like, okay, that's kind of scary thought. Another thing that I did like about the film, but it also it hurt me. It seemed like the people, and I felt like the movie did a good job trying to convey that people was trying to have such a normal life during the day hours.
Yeah.
And there's a scene in there that these people are just all dancing in this nightclub. And, me and Tiffany sitting there watching it. And they're all dancing. It's gotten dark, and they're all dancing. And the guy goes up and lights the band, and they can hear the sound. And I don't know if they hear the sound of the alarm or if they're hearing the sound of a whistle, but it just goes dark. In the next scene, it shows, grave robbers going in there, pulling things off their bodies. And she's, Tiffany asked me, she's like, with that going on, why would they be at a club? And, if that's going on for a year, people was probably just tired of being scared.
Yeah. It makes sense that they were trying to maybe block it out, at least for a couple hours. But another thing that was mind-blowing to me was the grave robbers.
Yeah.
Or not the grave robbers, whatever they were.
Well, might as well be grave robbers.
That was...
a lot of people that got bombed there, that was their grave.
Yeah. That was mind-blowing to me. I didn't think... Like, you you don't realize how evil people can be. Because to me, that was just.
I don't think it's evil. I think there's a certain extent that people, out of necessity, you know, you look at that same idea. You could say the same idea that them people's being evil and then watch that scene of them. And this was another thing our subscribers told us was they was drawing their stockings on. And you could say that that was superficial or whatever. I think people was just in a situation they was doing what they can. There was exploitation. There was, you don't know when people's put in survival mode, what that survival mode is going to trigger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I feel like that was kind of an example of that. You say, okay, these bad people in this movie, if this wasn't going on, would they still be bad people?
You don't know. I guess it did a good job in a sense showing the good and the bad and how people deal with it, because some people were helping in any way that they could and trying to care, and then others were robbing jewelry off of bodies.
Now, the storyline is the boy hops off the train and he tries to make his way back to his mother. That woman made 0 attempts to search for her child. You're going to notice that in the movie. I don't think there was a scene of her. Like, there's maybe 2 scenes of her looking around her neighborhood for her child when she's jumped off a train. She only knows between here and 1,000 miles out, wherever. But so this boy makes his way home. And, you know, it was the mother, her father, which is the grandfather, and him. And he comes out of that station, that London Bridge station, and he makes his way home. And as soon as he gets there, that night that he's trying to survive, his home gets bombed. And he runs up to the rubble, because the last scene, it showed his mom there, and it shows grandfather there in the home. And he's running up on this rubble, and he sees his grandfather laying there in the rubble. But then his mom comes up behind him. Mm-hmm. And I think that was, if anything, that was a perfect example of what the Blitz was. You know, when it came to it with the United Kingdom, they did it. They meet their goal. But at the end of it, there really wasn't a winner. That one boy made it home. And he got what he wanted, but he can't say he didn't lose. It was a very, I would say if you're unfamiliar with the Blitz, or if you want to watch it, you can, you know, I would say give it a watch. It's worth watching. I think it was I enjoyed it. I don't know if like I said, I don't know if I was in love with the main storyline, but the show and the visuals and just the backstory of just showing how people lived, I appreciated it. If you've watched the movie, let us know what you think.
Yeah.
If that's something, especially because I would take yours. I'm an American who's just delving into this, but I do like delving into it. But let us know what you think. All right, guys, with that, I am Rich.
And I'm Tiff.
And that was The Blitz on Apple TV.